In 2007, Quiznos subs had over 4,700 locations across the US. By 2017, that number had shrunk to less than 400 and the company was bankrupt. As is the case with any major business collapse, there are a multitude of factors contributed to their demise, including a leveraged buyout and the 2008 recession. However, a couple years before things started taking a turn for the worse, Quiznos introduced the world to one of the worst, yet memorable ad campaigns, the Spongmonkeys, and yes, that is their actual name. This is the story of the Spongmonkeys, how they made their way into a national ad campaign, and their eventual way into meme culture. In the world of advertising, most ads rank somewhere between good and bad. However, sometimes an ad comes out that is so bad, not only does it not do its job, but it can actually lose company money, result in lawsuits, protests, or even land people in jail. In this series, we look at those ads and the stories behind them. This is Terrible Ads, Episode 1, The Spongmonkeys. If you watched TV in 2004 in the US, there's a good chance you know what these Spongmonkeys are. But the story behind their creation, consumer reaction, and ultimate way into meme culture is a fascinating one. But before we dive into this ad campaign, we first need to understand Quiznos and their business model. Quiznos was, and still is, a large franchisee QSR. QSR standing for Quick Serve Restaurant. Most major food chains like McDonald's, Burger King, and Subway would fall into that category. Here's how they work. The way a franchise operation works is that a large franchise group, we'll say Big Sandwich Inc. in this case, allows any wannabe business owner to open their own store under the franchise name. Anyone who wants to open a location fills out an application, pays a fee to the corporation, and once approved, they'll get the right to open their own store and support and training from the franchise group. Once the store is open though, the owners still have to pay monthly fees back to the franchise group. These aren't totally sunk costs though. The franchise group will invest some of these funds in things like branding, legal support, food production, and marketing. This is where our story with Quiznos begins. So in 2004, when Quiznos started rolling out the Spongmonkeys ads, many owners were surprised and concerned. Some owners even tried to distance themselves from the ad. Huey Mack, who owns a Quiznos in Mobile, Alabama, posted a sign on his restaurant door explaining he had nothing to do with the ads. He said this to Ad Age in 2004. In our area, we've had nothing but negative comments and sales will prove that it hurt business. He wasn't alone. In the first week of the ad airing, the corporate office was flooded with over 30,000 calls about the ad. While Quiznos didn't publicly say what people were saying on those calls, it would be a surprise if 30,000 people called in to say how great they thought it was. So what are the Spongmonkeys? Well, if you've never seen the ad, here it is.
We love these subs, 'cause they are good to us. The Quiznos subs, they are tasty, they are crunchy, they are warm because they toast them. They got a pepper bar.
Quiznos new Santa Fe Trio subs with smoky chipotle sauce. Fried chicken, roast beef, or smoked turkey.
The Quiznos subs.
Quiznos. Toast.
If you need a minute to recover from that, I totally understand. Now, why would a company produce something like that and not just put it out in a couple of markets, but air it nationally in the Super Bowl? At the time, Quiznos Chief Marketing Officer Trey Hall said, "Our strategy was to create awareness and buzz. That's what we have done." Now, to his credit, that is true. But where did these critters come from? Was it the product of months of work from a creative agency in New York? The brainchild of a Mad Men type group of advertising execs? Certainly something that was produced to promote nearly 5,000 sandwich restaurants with a multi-million-dollar advertising budget had to have an equally impressive creative brief and team of people. Right? Well, kind of. The Quiznos spot was produced by the Martin Agency, an IPG-owned agency based in Richmond, Virginia. For those of you not familiar with the advertising space, IPG or Interpublic Group is a massive holding company, owning hundreds of ad agencies around the world and employing over 50,000 people. The Martin Agency is part of that group, so we're not talking about some small startup or fly-by-night company. Creative agencies have a lot of value, but namely you're paying a creative expert to produce something new and unique for your business to drive revenue. These agencies work on dozens if not hundreds of accounts and have extensive experience in building ads. If you hire a creative agency, especially one owned by IPG, you expect top-notch work. This particular campaign was a $25 million pitch that Quiznos put out to the industry. The Martin agency pitched the Spongmonkeys idea and won the contract. But the idea in this case was not their own and not totally new.
We like the moon, 'cause it is close to us. We like the moon, but not as much as a spoon, 'cause that's no use for eating soup. And the monkeys are very useful on that, unless it has got many vegetables. And then you might be better off with a chopstick.
Look and sound familiar? That's because the idea for this ad was not a fresh idea that came out of the Martin agency. It was started by a man named Joel Vitich, and I hope I'm saying that right. He made television shows for Britain's Channel 4 and had his own comedy site, rathergood.com. He had created these videos of the Spongmonkeys, and during the pitch, the Martin agency art director, Ty Harper, remembered an email someone had sent him earlier of Joel's work. Ty and creative director Carrie Feuerman reached out to Joel about the idea of using his creations in an ad. Joel loved it. The Martin agency produced a proposal and won the contract. Feuerman said in a 2004 Adweek article, "It was clear that the client was looking for something very unusual and interesting. They had in their brief they wanted an agency willing to take calculated risks. And I think we can all agree that's what they did." Once the shop won the account, Vitich and his brother Alex came to the US to help create the ads. Joel did the animation, and Alex provided the singing voice of the creatures, meaning the same people who created the original Spongmonkeys did the ad and the voices. Now, one would think that a $25 million ad pitch would involve coming up with something new, but in this case, they really didn't. Don't believe me? Here's Joel talking about this ad on a 2004 interview with CNN.
We have the answer this evening. His name is Joel Veach, and he's joining us now from London to talk about his distinctive creations. Joel Veach, welcome to Headline News. These are called Spongmonkeys, but a lot of people think they're rodents, actually.
Yeah, I think people have been quite confused about what exactly they are. It's a very good question. I guess Spongmonkeys basically, you know, could be anything. The only thing I do know about them definitely is that they definitely like subs.
You also like the look of this commercial, and your website too. You don't want a polished graphic look, even though you've got an advanced degree in graphic design. You like this kind of roughness.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You know, I think really it can be a merit. I think, you know, the idea should be more important than the way that it's presented visually. I don't really have any pretensions to be a new Disney or anything, so I really quite enjoy doing things like this, and especially with the ad, because the juxtaposition of those kind of rough graphics on really glossy food shots and serious voiceover really tickles me. It makes me laugh a lot. So.
Now, Joel is a talented artist, but even he seemed amused by how simple the process was. The ads ran for a while in 2004 until Quiznos decided to pull them down. The talking point at that time was that the ads did their job to create buzz, and they would now focus messaging on other things like products and services. Right. That may have been it for the story, though. This was the early 2000s, and before Twitter and meme culture, so if it wasn't on TV, people would forget about it. That is, until June of 2019. In June 2019, Aaron Sullivan tweeted out the infamous ad with the caption, "Millennials don't own homes because this Quiznos commercial put a hex on us as children." The tweet went viral with over 32,000 retweets and over 134,000 likes. According to KnowYourMeme.com, the Spongmonkeys have been part of meme culture from as far back as 2009. However, the tweet gave them more popularity and promoted articles on publications like Huffington Post, AV Club, Eater, and more. The AV Club published an article with the title, "Today we're reminded that the singing Quiznos rats were real and not a collective fever dream." Pretty accurate headline if you ask me. However, like most memes these days, it was fairly short-lived, and we're back to blinking guy memes and, for whatever reason, a meme about an all-powerful goose. Whatever. The meme may be dying down, Quiznos may be a shell of its former self, but in the records of terrible ads, the singing Spongmonkeys will always have a home. May we never forget their shrieking voices, bulging eyes, and broken English. And if you happen to live near one of the Quiznos still around, try and buy a sandwich without singing that song in the back of your head. For Terrible Ads, I'm Ben Silverstein, signing off from Madison Ave, New York, New York.